It is September 19th of the year 1928 in the town of Bell Glade, Florida, and devastation is rife in the small town. The streets are flooded, with the water being 7 feet deep in places. One of the 2 hotels in town is the only building left intact after the hurricane swept through the region. Hundreds of people were dead, and this is only the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the destruction this hurricane wreaked throughout the state. On September 6th of 1928, a tropical depression developed off the coast of West Africa, as most do. By September 9th, the storm became a Category 1 hurricane. It quickly rose in strength to a Category 4 before striking the island of Guadeloupe on September 12th. A day later, it became a Category 5, the highest ranking for hurricanes, before striking Puerto Rico, because of course. Then, it fell back to Category 4 and crossed the Bahamas on a direct path toward Florida. Florida was in the midst of the first Florida land boom, which I have a video about. But to summarize, after World War I, people began moving to Florida in droves, yearning for the feel of European beaches devastated by the war. So mass land booms began in California and Florida. Real estate was being bought and sold on an unprecedented scale, and cities like Tampa and Orlando drastically rose in population, while other cities, most notably Miami, rose from small towns to vast metropolises in the swamp. But this began to slow down following the 1926 Miami hurricane, which devastated the city, the blocking of Miami Harbor, and the many real estate scams which occurred throughout the state. However, the region around Lake Okeechobee was based on agriculture, with many small towns such as Bell Glade, Clewiston, and Pahokee sprouting up around the lake. A 4-foot-high mud dike was built around the lake, but it was already breached during the 1926 hurricane, drowning many in Moorhaven and Clewiston. In the week before the hurricane made landfall in Florida, many were forecasting that the hurricane would continue to the Yucatan in Mexico instead of Florida, including Richard Gray, chief meteorologist at the Weather Bureau in Miami. However, he and many others were proven wrong when the hurricane turned northwest after striking Puerto Rico on a direct path toward Florida. On September 15th, Gray issued storm warnings all along Florida's southeast coast, but Gray was still confident that the hurricane would not hit Florida. Around Lake Okeechobee, tension filled the air. The Seminole and the Brighton Reservation left for higher ground when they saw the wildlife fleeing. And the only doctor on the southern side of the lake and leader of Bell Glade's American Legion detachment, Dr. William Buck, became skeptical of Gray's reports that the hurricane would miss the region, and began having his legionnaires travel around to warn people to seek higher ground. Several residents sought shelter in the hotels, with the Bell Glade Hotel sheltering nearly 150, while the other hotel in town, the Glade, only sheltered 20. Lake Worth's hotel, the Gulfstream, on the east coast, sheltered over 500. In Palm Beach, nearly 500 were also seeking shelter in the courthouse. The hurricane directly hit Palm Beach and Lake Worth on the 17th, with winds estimated to be over 100 miles per hour. In Miami, the winds reached nearly 80 miles per hour. In the Iowa, the tornadoes caused even more devastation. Palm Beach and Lake Worth were devastated by the hurricane, with hundreds of houses destroyed and entire buildings left in rubble. But this pales in comparison to what happened to the Lake Okeechobee region. The area around Lake Okeechobee received a lot of rain prior to the hurricane. When the storm hit, The winds caused a storm surge that went over the dikes, flooding around 450 square miles of land with water up to 20 feet deep in some places. Buildings were swept off of their foundations, and many bodies were swept into the Everglades, never to be seen again. Bell Glade was the worst hit by far, with up to 611 confirmed dead. The Glades Hotel, which was sheltering 20 people who all lived despite two nearly drowning when the floodwaters rapidly filled the first floor, was the only building left intact in town. The Bell Glade Hotel also had its first floor flooded and its roof torn off, exposing those who sought shelter inside to the wind and rain. When the eye passed over the lake, the flooding reversed and went to the north side of the lake, flooding the town of Okeechobee. After passing over Lake Okeechobee, the hurricane turned north, passing over Jacksonville with 75-mile-per-hour winds before going out into the Atlantic, gaining more strength before making landfall again near Edisto Island, South Carolina. The hurricane kept going north before finally dissipating over Ontario, Canada. The Okeechobee hurricane killed over 4,000 people, over half of which were in Florida, and is one of the contributing factors to the end of the first Florida land boom, along with the blocking of Miami Harbor in 1926 and the 1929 stock market crash that sealed the end of the boom. The hurricane also inspired the famous African American Floridian author Zora Neale Hurston when she wrote her book, Their Eyes Were Watching God, where the hurricane is featured heavily in the climax of the book. The 1928 hurricane left a major mark on Florida that can be seen in the Okeechobee region to this day, which now has much higher dikes. If this video does well enough, I might revisit the novel Their Eyes Were Watching God and talk more about the history that inspired the book, as well as Zora Neale Hurston's story herself, which is very interesting. Thanks for watching.